So I wanted to take just a few minutes and talk to you about your rhetorical analysis essay one that you will begin working on this week and will work on through next week. So for this assignment, it says advertisements are designed to persuade and convince a select audience to purchase a product. You will select a commercial that aired during the 2022 Super Bowl or a print ad from a magazine. This cannot be an ad you have used for a previous assignment if you've used a print ad, and write a 1,000-word essay that takes a position on how well the ad convinces the intended audience to buy the product, use the service, etc., through the use of the rhetorical appeals. To be clear, you will address how the ad uses logos, ethos, and pathos to persuade its specific audience to take a position on how effective it is. You will also provide an in-text citation when you refer to your commercial. We will look at a couple of sample essays later in this video. Please stick around for that. But to boil this down, you are going to choose a commercial that must be from the 2022 Super Bowl and identify who the intended audience is and how the ad uses ethos, pathos, logos to appeal to that audience to get them to do whatever the ad is advertising. So as we get a little bit lower, I provide you some things to consider. So you might want to consider the rhetorical effect of images. And what that means is, what are you shown? How does it impact you? So are you given facts and statistics? Are you shown pictures like we saw in the animal shelter ad, all of those sad dogs? How did that impact you? Visual literacy. When you analyze images, what kind of power are they having over you? This is visual literacy. It's referring to your awareness of the importance of a visual. And then you want to consider writing to analyze, which is really you writing in a way that is going to show that you have used critical thinking to approach a puzzling object or data and offer your own ideas. Your goal is to raise interesting questions about the object being analyzed, questions that perhaps other viewers of the ad have not thought to ask. Now, as far as an approach goes, when you analyze and critique a commercial, you focus on the images and the text, giving them the same close attention that an art critic gives a painting or a football coach gives a game film. This close attention can be with the grain, noting the effectiveness of the ad's rhetorical strategies, or against the grain, discussing what is ineffective or problematic about these strategies. So if you have an ad that only uses pathos, you might have a paragraph that discusses, how that impacts the credibility, or how the lack of logic, the lack of logos keeps you from being able to trust the ad. Again, that would impact credibility, but also keeps you from feeling confident in what you're being presented. Based on your analysis, you will create a thesis and support it with several points. You will develop support for your points. This will be the meat of your paper, several paragraphs that develop your analysis so readers understand how you arrived at your thesis. You'll explain your points by drawing details from the ad. So you will want to analyze, and as you're doing this, you're going to consider the following questions. Whom the ad targets? Who is the intended audience? While it could certainly be simply general viewers, usually there's a more specific audience. So if we think about the Kevin Hart car finder commercial that you looked at last week, that ad is really focused at parents shopping for cars that their children might drive in. If we think about the Google ad, again, that's going to be to adults who want to hold memories close by. So we want to think about who the specific audience is. Then you will need to think about how the ad uses ethos, pathos, and logos. You must address all three explicitly in your paper. You'll also want to consider if the ad is effective in targeting the audience and convincing them. You'll want to consider how the visual elements of the ad are used to appeal to the values of the audience. You'll want to consider whether or not it's appropriate or worthwhile to appeal to those values. You'll want to consider what the advertiser is showing you or possibly not showing you. You'll want to consider ways in which reality has been altered in order to make the image more appealing. You'll also want to consider how the text of the ad relates to the message being communicated. You'll want to consider what type of responses the ad elicits. Does it make you feel fear, guilt, pity? And what assumptions the creator of the ad has made about the audience, about the viewers. When you're thinking about organizing your paper, you want to think about the parts of your paper. What does the reader need to know before you launch into your thesis? What background information might your readers need? Where will you locate your thesis? Insider note, we talked about this earlier in the semester when we were looking at intros and thesis statements. You're going to want to start broad about your topic, and then you'll narrow into your thesis. Your thesis should be one sentence, no more than one for this essay. It's not a long essay, does not require more than one sentence. One sentence at the very end of your introductory paragraph. As far as perspective, as you are considering this essay, I would encourage you to consider a pre-writing activity where you will really spend some time describing the ad with descriptive language, so that if your reader had never watched the ad or viewed the print ad, they would be able to kind of see that ad. This can be really helpful for a variety of reasons. First, it will help you pinpoint the specific things you might mention for evidence in your essay. The other thing is it will help you really start to understand what you are thinking about for your essay. As you present your ideas in your essay, you need to take an objective position. The readers know you are stating what you think because you wrote the paper. Therefore, you will not use I think that, I believe, I feel. You will not use first person. You also will not use second person. So you won't say you feel that or you this. You'll say the reader, the viewer, the audience, the creator of the advertisement, or the advertiser. Again, you're using the objective. With your thesis statement, your thesis should be an analytical thesis, not a descriptive thesis. In other words, it should not say what the ad is doing, but rather how the ad is doing what it's doing, and taking a position on whether or not the ad is effective. As far as support from sources, you will not use sources in this essay other than the ad itself. And you will have to cite that ad both in text and with a works cited entry, but you will not use additional sources. So let's talk about some of the detailed requirements. For length, you will have 1,000 words, not including the works cited page. Usually I like to cap this one at 1,500 words. It's very important that you hit 1,000 words at the very least, though. You will have 6 paragraphs, an intro, at least 4 body paragraphs, and a conclusion. You will use MLA format. You will include a works cited page where you will cite your advertisement, and you must include a copy or a link to your advertisement with your essay. You will do this on your works cited page. If you're just using a commercial, then you're simply just going to have that link in your works cited entry, which I'll show you what that looks like in just a moment. If you have a print ad, you would want a copy of that print ad. All right, as far as due dates go, I'm not going to go into those because if you're in a later semester watching this video, those due dates might be a little bit different than what you're seeing on the screen now. So defer to whatever your assignment says. But here are the assignments you'll have. You'll have an outline, a rough draft of your introductory paragraph, and a peer review of that, a final draft of your introductory paragraph, and then you'll have a final draft of your full essay that will be due at the end of week 7. And then you'll do a Flipgrid discussion where you tell us about your essay. And then you'll do a quick minute paper, which is just a course check-in. So nothing major. It'll take really close to a minute to complete. All right, so I want to look at a couple of sample essays. I provided 3 to you. The third one deals with a print ad. The top 2 are commercials, but all 3 samples are really good. I'm going to look at 2 of them specifically. And the first is going to be an ad related to a Procter & Gamble ad that aired a couple of years ago in 2021 at the Super Bowl. And so I want to kind of show you what this student does well. First, it set up an MLA format correctly. If this was your paper, it would be your last name and page 1. It would be your first and last name, my name, our course, and then the date. The date should be in this form. So this is September now. Your paper will be due in October. So I think it's due October 8th. So it'd be 8 October 2022. Then you need a title to your paper that's interesting. So this says Closing the Chore Gap, which is kind of interesting and appealing. And then she's going to get into her introductory paragraph. And this is what she says. On February 7th, during the 55th annual Super Bowl game, P&G aired a brand new commercials specifically targeted towards the average family watching the game in hopes of gaining more consumers for the products P&G distributes. By using a series of rhetorical devices, P&G, a large corporation that owns countless famous household brands including Dawn and Swiffer, attempts to lure the audience into purchasing staple cleaning products from the subsidiary companies promoted in the advertisement. If I'm being entirely honest with you, the weakest part of this paper is the introductory paragraph. I would like a little more meat here, maybe a little more expansion into Procter & Gamble, P&G, the advertiser, or more setup for the rhetorical appeals. But this has a good opening, and it does have a strong thesis that is sophisticated, that does not use the listing thesis, but does provide a really sophisticated thesis. And remember, the sophisticated thesis that does not include a list is the better thesis typically. And this one's nice because it leaves open the space to talk about lots of things, but it's specific enough that you understand what the writer intends. So we know that she's going to discuss the rhetorical devices and Procter & Gamble's specific use of their ad for the Super Bowl. So let's have a look at body paragraph 1, because remember, you need 4 body paragraphs, so 6 total paragraphs. So an intro, 4 bodies, a conclusion. So it says, to begin with, P&G is aware that to promote their products successfully, they first have to locate the perfect target audience. So they started the biggest sporting event so far in the year 2021, the 55th Super Bowl. Every year, families of all shapes and sizes gather to watch the Super Bowl and surprisingly even tune into the exclusive advertisements as well. As a result of this, the audience not only helps the classic American football game gain viewers and ratings, but also creates new groups of consumers for the sponsored products displayed during the televised sports show. In order to cater toward the household audience, the commercial begins by showing kids making messes, which is a very common occurrence when children are in the mix. Notice here, it says P&G, and then there's a timestamp, which indicates this happens 4 seconds into the commercial. It happens from 0 seconds to 0.4. This is important. This is what your in-text citation will use if you're using a commercial rather than a print ad. For a commercial, you have to include a timestamp so that I can go in, or any reader could go in and look specifically at that point in the commercial and understand what you are referring to by way of your example. Without these, you will not be able to pass the essay because you will not have cited, and technically that's considered plagiarism. All right, keeps on. By simulating a familiar vibe centered around experiences their target audience has most likely experienced, the company is able to capture the attention of their target audience while successfully promoting the products displayed in the advertisement. Another way Procter & Gamble, or P&G, captures their target audience is by inspiring families to bond over simple, mundane things. For instance, near the end of the video advertisement, the children that were responsible for the many messes were shown initially in the video stepped up to help clean up, which then led to more family bonding than initially expected. Again, we have our timestamp, and notice that the period for that sentence is going to come after the in-text citation. So in-text citation is going to be author of your video, so the brand, and then the timestamp. So this happened from 14 seconds to 26 seconds. P&G is aware of the Super Bowl's audience and takes into consideration while creating an inspiring moment that captures the attention of the audiences the company intends to sell their products. So this paragraph does a good job of bringing your attention to the audience. This is a really nice way to get your 4 paragraphs, because what we're going to see this student do is have the introductory paragraph, a body on audience, a body paragraph on pathos, one on ethos, one on logos, and a conclusion. That's a nice, easy way to get all 4 of your body paragraphs in for your 6-paragraph essay. So then she is going to transition. She says, next, P&G attracts the audience into purchasing the sponsored products in the video advertisement by using the rhetorical device pathos. And so in this paragraph, she's going to explore pathos. Remember, again, she's providing her timestamps, which is indicating the specific examples. You have to use specific examples from the ad to support your ideas. And then she's explaining why those are important. I'm not going to read the entirety of the essay for you. I'm just going to point out the pattern that she's using so that we're aware of kind of what's expected. In her next paragraph, again, she has her topic sentence. It says, furthermore, throughout the commercial, ethos is applied as a means to give the sponsored products in the video advertisement more credibility and accessibility. So here we have a topic sentence. We understand that ethos is going to be discussed. We have a nice transition word here. And it's not just, oh, ethos is applied. She goes a step forward and she says, and it gives the products in the video more credibility. So she's showing that she understands what the devices actually are. In your paper, it's important that you either use the words outright, ethos, pathos, or logos, or even better, discuss emotion, credibility, and evidence or statistics, that sort of thing. You want to make it clear that you understand which rhetorical appeal you're discussing and when. So here, again, she's going to provide specific examples and explain those examples throughout. Then we're going to have our final topic sentence that says, finally, P&G strategically incorporates the use of logos in the video by providing statistics and credible sources over the course of the advertisement. So here she's going to tell us about what specific factual information is provided and how that's going to impact the audience into believing this is a successful ad. Then finally, she has a conclusion. By airing their advertisement during the Super Bowl, P&G have the ability to locate and connect with their target audience. P&G then uses rhetorical devices throughout their advertisement in an attempt to connect with their audience and persuade these viewers to buy the various Dawn and Swiffer cleaning products presented in the commercial. Like the introductory paragraph, this conclusion paragraph is a little bit weak. It needs a little bit more meat. Remember, with your conclusion, you want to present a summary, a brief summary of what you talked about, so a sentence or two, and then you want to push it forward. How does this impact audiences? How does this impact your reader? Why is this important to your reader? So you want to broaden back out that conversation in relation to rhetorical appeals. That said, this is a student paper, as are the other two samples, so there will be some errors. That's to be expected. I don't correct their papers, but I like to show you places where they have succeeded and places where maybe they could have done more to be even more successful. And then she's going to have her work cited. She did visit the P&G website, so she cited that. Again, you're not going to use outside sources unless there's a specific reason for you to. And then her video, and this is what your video is going to look like, your ad. So we have the brand is going to be your corporate author. So she says P&G, period. The title of the ad, period. Then you're probably going to find it at YouTube. So that will be italicized with a comma. If you have the information about who it was uploaded by, lots of times with these types of commercials, you do. So she's able to say uploaded by Swiffer, comma, the date it came out. This is typically going to be the date of the Super Bowl. So you would want to use the date of the Super Bowl from 2022. And then you'll provide your web address with a period. All right, so let's have a look at the next sample essay. So this sample essay, again, set up in MLA format, and here's what it says. Can a burrito change the world? Again, a nice title. And I want to look at her introductory paragraph because she does a better job with introductory paragraphs. And so I wanted to let you have a look at this. It says, advertisements are the promotions of a service, product, or brand that companies use to attract people in order to encourage interest and ad sales. So she's starting really broad with advertisements in general. She says they can be seen in numerous places such as magazines, televisions, and the internet. A big example of the use of advertisements is during the Super Bowl that occurs every year. Companies release numerous ads to appeal to millions of individuals who are watching it through the rhetorical appeals of ethos, logos, and pathos to make them more effective. Among the abundance of the 2021 Super Bowl ads, one of the most effective ads was the Chipotle Can a Burrito Change the World, due to how it appeals to the audience through relatability whilst producing thought-provoking insights and inspirations that speak for change by depicting a normal argument between two siblings that leads into something more. So she has a really nice intro here. Her thesis gets a little bit wordy. I would prefer this to be a hair more condensed, but she gets to the point that this is an ad that was effective. She says it was one of the most effective. And she says it's due to how it appeals to its audience. And then she gives a bit of a list here of getting into it's relatable, there's a normal argument. And so again, it's broad, but it's a hair It's a hair vague. I would like it to be that language about the rhetorical appeals or rhetorical devices to be mentioned, but overall she does a good job. We're going to see in her topic sentences, she's going to very clearly discuss logic and reasoning. So we know this is going to be her paragraph on logos. So that's obvious. You want that to be obvious. Then again, she's going to have specific examples. She used quotes rather than describing the examples. That's okay. Again, she has her timestamp. This timestamp would be better if she used the author as well, Chipotle, but that wouldn't, because if you're only using one source, you really only have to use that specific timestamp, since there aren't more than one source. And then she's going to get into her next paragraph. Furthermore, throughout the ad, Chipotle builds credibility by creating relations individuals can connect to. And in this, we're going to see her address credibility. And she's, again, giving good examples as she goes through, and she's explaining those examples. Remember, the explanation's even more important than the example itself. Next, we're going to continue on. She has the, again, another transition. Continuing, Chipotle appeals to the emotions of the viewer by consistently producing results of what-if situations that are encouraging. So here what we're going to see is that she's going to narrow in on the emotions. She's going to use those strong examples, include her timestamp, and move forward. Body paragraph. This student is going to kind of go into bringing all three of the rhetorical appeals together to get to the heart of the message of this ad, which is really nice. I encourage you to look at this closely. She talks about how all three combine to acknowledge that those who want to see a better world can do so by considering this ad. She's going to provide very specific examples and explain those, as you should. And then finally, she's going to get to her conclusion. And let's have a look at it, because it's a little bit better than that first sample that I showed you. It says, irrevocably, the Chipotle ad is efficacious on all fronts. It illuminates morality to produce trust that is logically supported and makes one feel like better situations are arising. The ad shows how something as simple as arguing with a sibling over a burrito can spark a domino effect of change. Visually, the audience is stunned by a green world and brighter outcomes. The audience is shown the simplicity of how Chipotle's burritos can set a chain of reactions that endorses an enlightened world. The next time a person ever sees videos of farming or even thinks of plants, they'll be sure to remember that burrito. So here, she's expanding out while also keeping in mind that this is a commercial about Chipotle and their burritos. And then finally, we're going to see her works cited. Her works cited looks a hair different than the one you saw before, in that she's included an access date, which is preferable when you're using electronic sources, because sometimes those sources can be updated. This is especially important once we get to the research essay that you will do next. And again, so let's look at one final sample. Let me get it pulled up. I didn't pull it up initially, and we're not going to look at the whole thing, but I want to let you see her organizational pattern. It just so happened that all three of these students were female students, which is why I keep saying her. Here we go. All right. So this student is using a print ad, and the reason I wanted to show it to you is she organizes in a different way that is specific. And I'm not going to go through her full essay, but I wanted you to see what it looked like. So she talks about ethos first. Then in her next paragraph, she's going to get into logos with reason and logic. And then in body paragraphs 3 and 4, she's going to talk about nostalgia in one. And in the fourth one, she's going to talk about fury and hopelessness. So she uses 2 paragraphs because this particular ad plays so much on emotion. She uses 2 paragraphs for one of the appeals. So I know that sometimes having a requirement of 6 body paragraphs, as opposed to, the 5 traditional body paragraphs that sometimes students think about with essays, might make you feel a little bit overwhelmed. So I wanted to show you these 3 essays who do it differently. So sample 1 started in the first body paragraph after the introduction, establishing the audience, and then went through each of the rhetorical appeals. The second one went through each of the rhetorical appeals and then tied it all together into a final message that the ad is making effectively because of those 3 appeals. And then sample 3 is going to walk through each of the 3 appeals, and she's going to use 2 paragraphs for the most prevalent appeal in that ad. In any case, all 3 of these worked effectively. None of the 3 are perfect. They're student papers, so there are errors, but they are strong, solid essays. So I strongly encourage you to look at those as you are preparing for this essay.